were meant for me. I'm madly in love with you.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're having a look at another unofficial patch notes from Mike10d. Now this is kind of also with a changelog which happened today from War Thunder. Some of the changes, or all of the changes I should say, are in the unofficial patch notes, which is why I'm using this instead of the changelog, because we get more information here, we get more of the different changes, instead of just the major ones. So the major ones basically are BR changes, and also some economy changes, but on top of that, there's some other stuff for mainly ships. This whole patch was about ships, and the main reason behind it was to either change some things when it comes to actually unlocking stuff. I believe that was actually the changelog before, so I'll show that to you so you know the information. There was a issue when the Soviets were actually introduced to the game, and the reason why I didn't talk about it was I didn't really see the point, because I knew it would get fixed straight away. The issue is that when you actually looked at how many how many things you needed to unlock each Soviet tree, so here it said 2, I believe, and then here it said 4. So to unlock the Krasny Kavkaz, you needed 4 machines, even with the premium, hello Bernard, there was only 3 machines in total. So getting the 4 was obviously impossible to do, so they've changed it so you only need 2 now. So you have to unlock the SKR PR159 and the Project 7U if you don't have the Strongy. So yeah, simple as that. That was probably the major fix that we saw out of this server update. And there's also some other changes which, as I said, are in the unofficial patch notes. So let's go through it. First of all, we have the G5. Now, if you don't know what the G5 is, that is this machine here. It is the submarine of the sea. Even though it's on top of the sea, it just looks like a submarine. What happened with this is what would happen is, as you can see, the minimum crew required to actually use this thing when you're after getting shot and stuff was 1. Now, this doesn't really make sense if you're driving the machine and also shooting the top, the D-Shack out the top. So what they've done is they've changed it from 1 to 2. Now, obviously, this means that survivability is not great, but it's pretty much the same as before, meaning that its survivability was awful before, and now it's still awful. The basic way I've seen to use this machine, remember, I'm talking from an arcade battles point of view here, because I actually enjoy ships in arcade and not so much realistic, is this thing can go about 135 kilometers an hour on the water. So what you do is you speed around like a crazy man, fire your torpedoes at everything, use the 50 rounds in the D-Shack that you get, and then just basically just be an ass with the torpedoes. Maybe ram somebody and then fire torpedoes at the same time, stuff like that. But with this change, it means it's a little bit less survivable, but it won't change the effectiveness of the machine, in my opinion. The OD200, the 37mm, the yaw speed has been doubled, and the pitch speed has basically been doubled with a little bit more on top of it. So if you don't know what the OD200 is, it is this machine here. And the 37 is mounted on the back, and something that was a bit of an issue, it was kind of slow, but with the changes now, especially now that I got stuff like the modifications, even though they don't show numbers, the turn speed on it is incredibly good. So, yeah, they've basically just doubled its maneuverability of the 37, and since it's your main powerful gun that you're going to be using, that's nice to see. And also, as you can see, I have it fully modded now. I think it's an alright machine. At 1.7, basically your options are the MO4, or this. I would actually take the MO4, just because it has 2 45mm instead of 1, and also it has, I think, a little bit extra armor, if I can just check. Actually, no, never mind. So it basically is a little bit more survivable with 1 more crew, and also it has 2 45s instead of a 37, so why wouldn't you take it? It seems obvious. The PR123 BIS and the PR123K comsomolets. The torpedoes have been changed from an AN to an NU. Now, these are wet heating torpedoes, so in my opinion, they should be a little bit better. If we look at these machines, let's see, it's the PR-123 and the 123K. So basically the two other PT boats, if you want to go down, I would personally tell you to go down the battle boats, I think is what I'm going to call them. It's a hell of a lot more fun. Whereas the Project 123 BIS and the comsomolets, I've had a lot less fun in, but that's mainly because the D-Sharks on top of this haven't been great. Like, the clip size is a real issue with it, you know, the fact that you only get 50 rounds per gun. But the KPVs, the main place where I've actually been testing these is on this, the PR-191M, and I've got to say, the KPVs are monstrous. So yeah, maybe the comsomolets I'll have a bit more happiness with. But the torpedoes in general, when it comes to the Russians, have been very fun. The 12.7mm D-Shark machine gun reload time has gone down from 6 to 4, so that's obviously a very big change, since a lot of these lower tier Soviet naval vehicles have D-Sharks on them. And yes, I understand, a lot of people have pointed out I say it wrong. That's completely fine. There are certain liberties I take when it comes to naming, well, not naming stuff, but saying things, because of my accent and because of the way that I've formed it, you know, over the last few years. It's very hard to say certain things. So, Dishka is really hard for me to say, but D-Shack is very easy for me to say. And since, you know what I'm talking about, if I explain that, then yeah, we'll go forward with that. There is a few other things that I take liberties with, but I always let you know. So yeah, the reload time being knocked, obviously a buff to a lot of these lower tier vehicles, making them a lot more useful. But the main issue with the machine gun is the 50 round mag. The KPVs, the reload time has gone down, and also the sounds. So they don't sound like 16mm KPVs anymore. They sound like 20mm Oerlikons, which is fair enough. These have been devastatingly effective, and the reason for this is the fire rate and the amount of rounds you can get off before you have to reload. So with the PR-191M, I've just been dousing people. What I do is, even though the default gun is the 85, change that to this, the APHEBC, and then change it so you're using your machine guns instead of your main gun, and use the main gun to fire independently and fire at whatever it wants, and use the 14.5mm, which you get 4 of them, to do as much damage as you can. The amount of damage you can do with the 4 machine guns is so much more than the 185. So I would say straight away, start using the KPV stuff instead of the 85 turret on the front. And then, of course, APIT rounds, because some of these new Soviet ships actually have armor on them. So armor penetration is really big right now in naval. The 76mm 34K mounting, the reload has also gone down. It seems like if we look at the 76mm D56T, that is decreased by more than half. The 76mm F34 has gone down by about half, maybe a little bit less than half, yes, a little bit less than half. And then the 85mm ZIS C53 cannon has gone down by about a third. So all of the larger, I suppose you'd call them the larger stuff. So if we look at the MPK PR-122A, this gun on the front of it has decreased in reload time. So one of the issues with a lot of the... is it that one? Yes, it is. One of the issues with a lot of these Soviet ships is they have some decent guns on them, but compared to other ships that we have from other nations, what you see is a lot of rapid fire and a lot of ways of doing a lot of damage quickly across a whole ship. The best way, it seems, to annihilate ships nowadays is to spray across the ship to try and take out as many crew as possible. And when you have large turrets, like on the PR-1124-45, you can't really do that. You have to pretty much attack specific areas on a ship and try and take them out. So they're much better at annihilating ammunition, especially if you get the upgraded rounds. But that's a little bit more dodgy than just, spraying across a whole ship. So yeah, that is something to think about. They do have a lot of armor on them though, which can be incredibly annoying unless you have AP rounds. But yeah, across the board, all of the larger guns that you see have been decreased when it comes to the Soviets, rank 1 and rank 2 machines. The Russian ship's tree requirement, as you can see, that has been dropped from 4 to 2. That's what I talked about before. And the US ship's tree, the LCS L3 and the 165-footer PC451, they've swapped in the tech tree. So just to show you that, if we go to the naval tech tree, you can see the LCS L3 used to be here. The 165-footer used to be here. So they've just swapped them around. The reason for this is because they've upped the BR of the LCS L3, and also, it's just better. So it doesn't really make sense if that comes before it. I would actually contend that the 165-footer is, you could make an argument for it actually being worse than the 110-footer. And the reason for this is because on the 165, you have the dual 20s on the back, and then you have the big 3-inch at the front, and you also have dual 20s. Oh, yeah, the dual 20s on the back here, and then you have the 20s in the middle here. So basically, you can't control a ton of guns at once. You can only control 2 at the most, and they're only 20mm. 110 footer at 2.0, so it's got a lower BR. It's also got a 40mm Bofors on the front of it, and also it has some mortar depth charges over here. So yeah, and it's also got good 20s on the back. I would actually say this is better than the 165-footer, but that's just, it's personal preference, I think. I think it's alright them being like this. I just think that the 110's a little bit better. So, battle rating changes. This is the big thing for ships. It was very obvious early on that certain machines were very strong compared to their compatriots, and you can see that in the fact of what people have played, and so on and so forth. So the Cannon Boot K2, it's gone down by 0.3 BR. I haven't really touched the Germans because it came out at the time where research was really bad in naval, so I made a choice. I instead researched American, had a lot of fun, so I didn't really want to touch it. I do have a lot of people on the Discord and a lot of friends who have played this stuff and given me my opinion, so a lot of it is based on that and also general chatting. The Cannon Boots K2, this big boy. 2 dual 20s, 2 dual 37s, and 4 20mm and 2 quad 20s. It's gone down to 3.7. It's a large boat. Its crew is not as big as some of the destroyers that you see, such as the Type 1936. And if we go along with the idea that more guns equals more power, then the cannon boots will eventually lose to these destroyers. But I think at this point it comes down to much more, are you able to shoot better? And one of the things that this does, which makes it a little bit better, is the fact that now you can create a 3-7 lineup, which doesn't go up against the Emden, or doesn't go up against the Trenton, or doesn't go up against the Cavcats. And that, to me, is a big deal, because it means you don't have to face light cruisers in an inferior machine. So that's nice. It means you can build a lineup of the Type 140-41, or the Type 1924-1939 in the cannon boot. So that's, it's better than facing light cruisers and getting your self-handed to. The SF-40 Lect and the Schwer are going up by 2.3 BR. It's very interesting that these two are the same BR. These are the battle barges, by the way. But what I've found from them is if you get anywhere near close to the Lect, or however you say it, it annihilates you. It's as simple as that. If the guy is paying attention in the SF-40, you will die. There is no two ways about it. You can get 12 of these wonderful 20mm on a target at any point, and there's not a lot of armor, so, at that tier, so what's going to happen is you're just going to get annihilated. Now that the Soviets are here and there's a little bit more armor around the place, I see its effectiveness being a little bit lower, but I don't see it being bad. I still see it as a meta vehicle, even with the BR change, because it's very hard to kill unless you're using torpedoes, and torpedo boats aren't meta now. So this machine will do really well against the meta vehicles, but not so good against the non-meta vehicles. So if we see a shift towards more PT boats than more battleships, in a way, or battle boats, then the elect will get annihilated. But right now, it's good against the gunships, I suppose you'd call them, or at least that's what they're called in game. The Sphere is the one with the 88s. I don't see as many people seeing this, but the way I see it is the one issue with the Lect is the fact that if it gets up-tiered, what will happen is it won't necessarily always have the range to deal with some of the enemies. The Sphere does have it, so in an up-tier the Sphere is better, in a down-tier the Lecter is better, and because most of the time you're getting down-tiered right now, what's happening is it's better to take the Lecter right now. But yeah, both are very good machines with different capabilities. I personally said right now the Elector is slightly better. Moving on, the LCS goes up by 0.3. This doesn't surprise me at all, and I'll show you why. So the LCS is this wonderful machine, LCS L3, and if we go to my service record, you can already see 172 kills, 27 deaths. And remember, this is from stock to modification full, 91.4% win rate, and that's in 35 battles. So we're talking what, 35, 70, 105, 140, around about what, maybe five kills a battle, which is okay. But the main thing is the KD and the win ratio. There have been many games when this LCS have just carried games, and the reason for it is the dual 40s. This has two dual mountings of 40s. I see a lot of people trying to use the 3-inch on the front. Instead, what you need to do is change your control to the... dual mounted 40s. So this'n and this'n, and you'll annihilate anything. And the reason for this is because you can use AP belts. You can pen everything. You can blow up ammunition with this thing. And the only thing you have to worry about is enemies being able to blow your ammunition up. So the BR increase on this makes complete sense. I would actually put it up to 3-0 if I was in control. Now we have some changes to a bunch of the Soviet ships that just got added. So they've only been there for like a day, but we've already got some changes. So the first one is the 1124s, the 45, 40, and MLRS. They're all going down by 0.3 BR. And if you want to have a look at them, it's basically this'n, this'n, and this'n. The only real difference between them is the armaments that they have. The crew is the biggest issue with these, so they don't have a lot of crew on them, and as we've seen going forward, the things which are much more important on ships like this at this level right now seems to be the idea of autocannons. Now, maybe as we go along, larger guns will be much more useful when more armor is actually added to these ships. But right now, this is generally more useful than this, or maybe even the grenade launcher. It's very odd. And that's just because of how, the damage models of ships is sorted out. So I can see why they've lowered these machines. This one hasn't been lowered, though. Am I on a wild goose chase right now? I mean, I might be. Or it might just be an arcade thing. But definitely these two were lowered. And these are the ones with the T-34 turrets. This is the one with the 85s, which can't shoot over its bow. Or at least it shouldn't be able to unless you bob up and down. But it's going to be interesting to see what these are like, personally. I have only used very similar ones, such as this. And as I said, it's much better just to use the machine guns anyway. The Krasny Kavkaz has gone down to 5.0 to keep it in line with all the other light cruisers. It makes sense. The MBK PR-186 is down to 2.7. the MBK PR186, so this is this one. Oh, this is the one with the 85s. One of the issues that I found with all of these turreted ships, I think I'll call them, from the Soviets, is the fact that they start off with HE, and the HE is absolutely useless. So until you get the upgraded rounds, so in this case, the APHE BC, the 85s don't do a lot. Because, 10mm of penetration is not a lot, so you'll end up causing a few fires and that's about it, or you'll be able to annihilate a very low armored target, but once you get that APHE BC, it really turns on and turns into a killer. One of the machines that I really saw this with was the BMO, and also the MO4 with its 45s. The 45s, when they started, as you can see, were HE, and then when I graduated to AP, I started doing so much damage and pretty much one-shotting enemies and smashing ammos. The PR1204 late is down by 2.7, and the PR191M is down by a whole 0.7, which is really interesting. I'm not sure about that, just because of the power of the KPVs, but more testing is required. The PR1204 late, oh, it's this one, okay, so that's down to 2.7. Oh, that must be, this is the premium one, isn't it? Never mind. I suppose it keeps it in line with this. I don't have it, so I apologize. But yeah, the PR191M down, and then this down, and then this down. We'll see. We'll see how useful this is. I really want to see how good those grenade launchers are. 61,000 RP though. It's crazy. The PR191M I've already talked about. So let's get on to some of the economy changes, which are, not really that hard to read. So the Krasny Kavkaz, this is the Soviet light cruiser that we have in game right now. They've pretty much reduced everything across the board, which is nice. What is interesting is we have some GE costs thrown in, so maybe they're deciding to you're going to be able to use GE at some point. We'll have to see going forward. I'm sure the idea is eventually to do that. So the AB, RB repair times have also been decreased. So overall, what you're getting is a better machine than before when it's economy-wise. Nothing else has really changed. Like, nothing has been increased. So it's not like we're balancing, this here to decrease this here. It's literally across the board. We're decreasing it. What this does mean, though, is your reward multiplier goes down. Now, if you're at the Krasny Kavkaz, I don't know what you'll be researching, unless you're researching something in rank 2, sorry, because as you may remember, you have to get 2 of these ships before you can get the Krasny Kavkaz. Now, I suppose you could get it before you get the Project 7U, because you could have the Strony, but that's the only place where this is really going to matter, because RP for these ships is going to be awful because of the way that the RP system works. You're really good at researching a tier below you and a tier above you, and that's it when it comes to standard vehicles, so yeah. That is something to think about, but everything else going down is good for the machine. Then we move on to the PR123 BIS. If you want to know what that is, it's this one once again, the Project 123 BIS. Little torpedo PT boats with some wonderful 12.7 dual D-shacks on the back. And the rewards for it have gone down astronomically, and everything else has also gone down. So in some ways good, in some ways bad. It's going to cost you 2 whole SL to get the to restock your AP 12mm, 12.5 it should be. But yeah, overall interesting that they are reducing the reward and also everything else. I'm sure there's some kind of calculation that's done with that, where if they reduce rewards then everything else gets reduced. We'll have to see, because back when we looked at some of the other economy changes, it looked a bit all over the place. The Comms Omelets, which is the next one in the line, this one with the KPVs, they have basically done the same treatment, so lowered everything once again across the board, including rewards, so you won't get as much out of these PT boats. I think these PT boats kind of need everything that they can get, especially when it comes to rewards. just because of the fact that more people are just going to use the gunboats instead. So it's kind of sad to see these changes, but if they make them fall in line with everything else, then I'm completely fine with it. So yeah, pretty much as simple as that. That has been having a look at the changelogs and also the unofficial patch notes made by Mike10d. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.